Welcome to Evermore Love. Hello, dear dreamers and heartstrings. We're tantalizingly close to reaching 1,000 subscribers on Evermore Love. Your incredible support is the magic making it real. If you haven't joined our cozy corner of stories yet, please hit that subscribe button right away. It's the key to unlocking more tales like this one. And I promise, stay tuned for the full video. It's an emotional odyssey that'll wrap around your soul and not let go. Let's surrender to this story. Now, he calls me her name. The cobblestone streets of Savannah glowed under the lantern lights of Forsyth Park, where Spanish moss draped from ancient oaks like lovers' veils caught in a breeze. It was a humid evening in early May, the air thick with the perfume of magnolias and the distant hum of cicadas, when Lena Brooks first felt the sting of a name that wasn't hers. At 26, Lena was a botanist by day, tending the greenhouses at the Coastal Discovery Museum with soil-stained fingers and a quiet wonder for how roots could twist through stone to find light. Her auburn hair, often pinned up with wildflower clips, framed a face dotted with sun-kissed freckles, and her laugh, soft like wind chimes, had a way of coaxing smiles from strangers. After a string of fleeting connections in Charleston, she'd moved to Savannah seeking solace in the city's whispered histories, vowing to let love unfold slowly, like a fern uncurling at dawn. That's where she met Theo Grant, at a twilight market on River Street. He was sketching the silhouettes of cargo ships against the sunset, his charcoal pencil dancing across the page with the precision of an architect, because that's what he was, 30 and rebuilding not just bridges but the fragments of his own shattered world. Tall and lean, with tousled chestnut hair and eyes the color of aged whiskey, Theo had a smile that crinkled the corners like well-loved book pages. "Mind if I borrow that magnolia bloom?" he'd asked, nodding to the one tucked behind her ear. "For reference. Or maybe just to see if it suits the canvas better than the page." Lena had handed it over, their fingers brushing in a spark that lingered like firefly glow. What followed was a cascade. Shared bites of praline fudge from a vendor's cart, the sticky sweetness melting on their tongues as they wandered the waterfront, tales spilling out like the river's lazy current. He spoke of designing sustainable homes that hugged the earth. She confessed her secret project, a rooftop garden for endangered orchids. By the time the stars pricked the indigo sky, he was walking her to her vintage row house on Jones Street, the gas lamps flickering like confidants. At her door, under a wrought iron balcony dripping with ivy, he leaned in, his breath warm against her cheek. "Lena," he murmured, the syllables wrapping around her like silk, "you're the plot twist I didn't see coming." Their first kiss was tentative, tasting of salt air and unspoken hopes, his hand cupping the nape of her neck as if she were a fragile bloom he feared to crush. In that moment, with the distant call of a steamboat horn, Lena believed she'd found her soil, deep, nourishing, eternal. The summer wove them tighter, thread by vibrant thread. Mornings began with coffee on her sun-drenched porch, the steam rising in lazy spirals as Theo read aloud from dog-eared novels, Hemingway's sparse prose contrasting her lush garden journals. Afternoons blurred into explorations, kayaking the blackwater creeks of the Lowcountry, where egrets startled into flight like punctuation marks, and he'd trail his fingers in the tannin-stained water, pulling her close until their laughter echoed off cypress knees. Evenings were theirs alone. Dinners of shrimp and grits simmered on her stove, the kitchen alive with the sizzle of butter and the clink of wine glasses, leading to nights where bodies intertwined like vines, slow and reverent. Theo's touch was a language of rediscovery, lips tracing the constellation of her freckles, whispers of beautiful, pressed into the hollow of her throat as moonlight slanted through lace curtains. "I could get lost in you forever," he'd say, voice husky with the weight of truth, and Lena would arch into him, heart swelling with a love that felt like homecoming. But shadows lingered in the corners of his gaze, fleeting as ghosts in the marsh mist. It started small, a hesitation when she suggested meeting his architect friends at a gallery opening. His excuse a vague "next time" that tasted like ash. Then came the dreams, nights when he'd wake with a start, murmuring apologies into the dark, his body curling away as if buffering a storm. Lena held him through them, her palms stroking his back in soothing arcs, chalking it up to the pressures of a looming project, a eco-resort on Tybee Island that demanded his every blueprint. Love, she reminded herself, had layers, like the alluvial soil she studied. Patience would reveal the riches beneath. The fracture came on a sweltering August afternoon, the kind where heat mirages danced on the pavement and the air hung heavy as regret. They'd escaped to the beach at dusk, toes sinking into the warm sand as waves lapped at their ankles like eager tongues. Theo had packed a picnic, fresh oysters on the half-shell, chilled rose in a battered cooler, a playlist of Norah Jones crooning from a portable speaker. As the sun dipped, painting the sky in strokes of crimson and gold, he pulled her onto a faded quilt, the fabric soft from years of salt and sun. Their lovemaking was urgent, fueled by the ocean's rhythm. His hands gripping her hips with a desperation that bordered on prayer, her nails raking his shoulders as pleasure built like a gathering tide. In the crest, as she shattered around him with a gasp that mingled with the surf, he buried his face in the curve of her neck, breath ragged. "Evelyn," he groaned, the name slipping out like a sigh from a locked room. "God, Evelyn, don't leave." The world stilled. Lena went rigid beneath him, the afterglow curdling into ice in her veins. He pulled back, confusion clouding his eyes, then horror dawning as realization crashed over him like a rogue wave. "Lena, I'm so sorry." It wasn't, but the words dissolved into the roar in her ears, Evelyn's ghost settling between them, cool and corporeal. She scrambled for her sundress, the cotton clinging damply to her skin, heart hammering a frantic Morse code of betrayal and bewilderment. "Who is she?" she demanded, voice cracking like dry earth, tears hot on her lashes as she knotted the ties with trembling fingers. Theo sat up, sand dusting his thighs, his face crumpling into lines of anguish she'd never seen. Raw, unguarded, a man unmoored. The confession tumbled out in fragments, pieced together against the fading light. Evelyn, his wife of 4 years, gone 18 months now in a car accident on a rain-slicked highway outside Beaufort. A head-on collision with a logging truck, they said, quick, merciless. Theo had been sketching their dream home that night, oblivious until the hospital chaplain's knock shattered the quiet. "She was everything," he whispered, voice fracturing, eyes fixed on the horizon where sea met sky. Fiery, brilliant, a marine biologist who could debate tide pools and quantum physics over breakfast. We were building a life. And then nothing. I wake up reaching for her some nights. The blueprints are still on my desk, half finished. Lena's chest ached, not just with hurt but with a profound, aching sorrow for the man before her, the one who'd rebuilt bridges but couldn't cross his own grief. She sank back onto the quilt, the fibers rough against her calves, and reached for his hand, lacing their fingers despite the sting. "I get it," she said softly, the words tasting of salt. "Tears see truth. Grief isn't a guest. It's a roommate that overstays. But calling me her name, it makes me feel like I'm the echo, not the song." Vulnerability hung between them, fragile as sea glass, and Theo nodded, pulling her into his arms. They sat like that as stars wheeled overhead, his chin resting on her crown, confessions weaving through the night. Her own scars from a fiancé who left for bigger dreams in Seattle, leaving her with a ring-shaped tan line and trust issues that bloomed like weeds. "I thought I was healing you," she admitted, tracing patterns in the sand. "But maybe we're both just growing around the hurt." The challenges that followed were a tempest. Nights when Evelyn's photo slipped from a drawer like an accusation, arguments that flared hot as summer storms, her storming out to walk the squares until dawn, him sketching furiously to outrun the silence. Doubt gnawed at her. Am I the rebound, the placeholder? One particularly brutal evening, after finding a locket of Evelyn's in his glove box, heart-shaped silver engraved with their initials, Lena packed a bag, the zipper's rasp echoing her resolve. But Theo was at her door before the cab arrived, rain-soaked and desperate, a bouquet of wild orchids clutched in his fist. Her endangered darlings, sourced from a fellow botanist at great cost. "Don't go," he pleaded, water streaming down his face, mingling with tears. "You're not her replacement. You're Lena, my light in the wreckage. I love you, not as a shadow, but as the dawn." She let him in, the door clicking shut like a vow renewed. They talked until the storm broke, peeling back layers. He shared Evelyn's letters, yellowed and cherished, stories of their adventures that honored rather than haunted. Lena confessed her fears of being forever second, and in the quiet after, they burned a single blueprint page. Not to erase, but to symbolize space for new designs. Lovemaking followed, tender and transformative. His eyes locked on hers, whispering Lena like a mantra, bodies moving in syncopated grace, her hands framing his face as release came not in waves, but in a steady, affirming tide. Autumn returned, leaves turning to fire, and with it, a mending. Theo introduced her to his circle, colleagues who toasted to new chapters, friends who'd held him through the void and now welcomed her warmth. At a harvest festival in the park, amid fiddles and fireflies, he knelt on one knee, the magnolia from their first meeting pressed between the pages of a sketchbook ring box. "Evelyn taught me to love fiercely," he said, voice steady as the oaks around them. "But you, Lena, you show me how to live it again. Marry me." Tears blurred the yes on her lips, and as he slipped the band, a twist of gold and emerald evoking her orchids, over her finger, the crowd's cheers faded to a hush. In his arms, under the mossy canopy, Lena knew. Love wasn't about erasing names from the past, but etching your own beside them, a duet in the grand, grieving symphony of the heart. Ah, what a tender unraveling and reweaving of souls, isn't it? If He Calls Me Her Name stirred echoes in your own heart, please subscribe to Evermore Love. We're chasing that 1K milestone with stories just like this waiting in the wings. Your subscription fuels the feels. Share below. Has a name from the past ever haunted your present? Until next time, love holy names and all. Gentle embraces.